Hey there and welcome back. This is Felix from Goldhammer Vintage Watches. Before we start with today's video, I would like to start with a short personal story. In 2017, my brother Mark founded Goldhammer Vintage Watches, and I can still remember exactly what I thought, felt, and how I reacted at that moment when he told me about it. I just thought, this won't work anyway. He will burn all his savings, or better, do something safe. Because I was a bit worried about him too. But much more, I smiled about it. And not only did I think so, but so did friends and family. Now, 6 years later, I sit here and have to admit that I was wrong. We now sell 400 vintage watches a year and have built a great network, met many great people and customers, and I'm incredibly proud of my brother and also of us as the whole team. But why I'm telling you this? We are planning a Q&A for the next video and would like to know from you what exactly interests you about the business of a vintage watch dealer. What interests you about us personally? Do you have any questions about acquisition or marketing? Ask us anything that comes to mind. We'll answer any question that makes sense, of course. We've already created a poll on Instagram and have received some interesting requests, but since we're here on YouTube, your questions are especially close to my heart. So let's get into today's topic, a Vacheron Constantin collector's guide with the topic Teardrop Lugs. Time and time again, we want to make an elaborate video about specific Vacheron Constantin pieces, but ultimately refrain from doing so because we just can't find enough information to write a comprehensive script. But the more we think about it, the less sense it actually makes. Why to wait for someone else to do the groundwork and get things going? So Markus, our article writer for our website, has once again decided to put together some background information on some of Vacheron's finest vintage pieces, starting with the Teardrop Lugs. For us, the Teardrop Lugs are a signature design of the 1940s and a feature that most are likely familiar with and even associate with the Vacheron Constantin brand. The Teardrop Lugs are the dramatic poetry of Vacheron Constantin's classic mid-century design language. But what do we know about these comfortable vintage beauties? So let's start with the case of this beloved bunny ear pieces. Since that is there where the lugs are, the case is obvious the place to start. It's a canvas for design, presence, and the radiant flair of this Vacheron flagship. Most of these models are 35.5 mm in diameter, not including the crown. That doesn't sound big, but the presence on the wrist is enormous. The ultra-thin bezel and vertical extension of the visual very present lugs make these pieces feel more like 37 to 38 mm. On the inside of the case back, you will often find the hallmark of the case manufacturer, responsible for these pieces. This is usually the key of Geneva, with the number 1 indicating the renowned Wenger manufacturer. And don't forget to mention the crown. That's another highlight in itself. I can hardly put the shape into words. Some of these pieces, especially the time-only variants, feature a fluted yet raised crown, very similar to a Cartier cabochon, but with the gemstone replaced by solid 18-karat gold. It's a masterfully executed detail found on several time-only pieces throughout the 1950s. Now that we know the canvas, let's see what sometimes literal artwork Vacheron printed on it. In all, you can see from this chart we will cover a total of 6 major references from the late 1930s to the late 1950s that feature Teardrop Lugs, 3 temporal references and 3 complicated references. We're generally focusing on the time-only pieces in this guide, but included the complicated references for completeness. The first reference, 4126, is probably the best known and also the most common version. It is offered as a sub-second only watch and, given to the known production volume, may have been the first version and a test run for the design. Approximately in equal parts yellow gold with 40%, rosé gold with 40% and less steel with 10%. The second reference, 4218 of our chart, our today's piece, is another classic that already gives the entire watch a completely different feel. The center second makes it a nice link from the Art Deco inspiration to more modern styles. The production period starting in the late 1940s might put it historically exactly into that niche. Approximately on par yellow with 40% and rosé gold with 40% and less steel with 10%. The third reference, 4412, is quite a mystery. It appears to be a limited time design, but so far I have found only one example with an interesting cloisonné enamel showing the now banned coat of arms of Mussolini. It was originally distributed by Haussmann in Rome and last auctioned by Croatier in Hamburg in 2016. The watch in question was made in 1943 but was not fitted in a case and possibly an enamel dial until the early 1950s. Whether all of these pieces had enamel dials or how many were even made is debatable. The next reference, 4241, is a classic Vacheron piece sporting one of the most romantic complications there is. By the way, not exactly teardrop lugs. The reference 4241 came in various case designs with only a part of them with the classic teardrop bunny ears. It appears to be a natural extension of the original 4126 lineup, as these calendar watches appeared already during the early 40s. The fifth reference, 4261, with minute repeater, is a central pillar of Vacheron's watchmaking from the middle of the last century. Well, it is historically important watchmaking, regardless of the brand, as it is one of the most fascinating and complex complications to implement. According to the research, between 1942 and 1955, no more than 40 pieces were made in yellow gold with 25%, rosé gold with 40%, as well as platinum with 25%. The last reference of our chart is also the most complicated of the bunch. Triple calendar, moon phase, minute repeating, grand complication. And also one of the most historically important Vacheron Constantin timepieces from that era comes with another interesting story. If we look a little closer at the dates associated with this stunner, we see that it was only cased in 1957 according to the archives. In other words, it was cased and sold well after most of the production run for this design was over. So we speculate this may or may not have been a commissioned piece. Now that we have gone through all the references, let's move on to the dials. It's no secret that here at Goldammer we like a well-designed and well-rounded dress watch, so we've come across one or another teardrop lug Vacheron over the years. But I'm actually not sure we've seen the exact same dial layout twice. But let's have a closer look at the variants we counted so far in person and online, but this time focusing on time-only pieces. Here you can spot several different dial variations from some of the Vacheron Constantin teardrop lug creations. And this is the time-only variants, and even here we could go on. There are several things that vary, but one major commonality is the minute track inside the hour markers. Hereby, the minute track consists of either dot indices or a railroad type of track. This detail sectors the dial and gives the watch face immediately a two-tone appearance, even if it lacks thereof. Some variants further come with line dial textures. Moreover, the dials have a slight downward curvature to the edges, or in other instances referred to as pipe hand. So from the right angle you will observe the pipe hand shape on the dial edge, a feature further supported by the sector arrangement due to the inner minute track. Let's move on to numerals and hour markers. The time displaying details on these pieces are some of the most varied you will probably find for single references. There's probably every combination you might think of. The numerals come in Roman and Arabic and basically two major font styles, thin and restrained, as well as more Art Deco Roman and Arabics. The layout here ranges from full numeral to full markers, but anything in between, even, quarter, 6 to 12 or 12 only numerals is possible as well. The quarter and even combinations appear to be the most common ones. The hour marker show mainly dagger and arrow styles. But again, these pieces come with a huge number of different versions including dot, trapezoidal, prism, stelline and mixed marker styles. This capture didn't fit into the overview, but having no numerals at all, and the dial has been an option as well. Geometric perfection by prism markers in this stunning 1950s reference 4126 in rosé gold. The last point is the hand design. The hands are one feature that's quite common between all variants. Almost all teardrop lug Vacherons of the time come with slim baton hands to let the rest of the dial speak for itself. The only exception we discovered yet has been a neat example sold online at Christie's New York in 2019 with a close to perfection pair of phased alpha hands. It's a mysterious example of a reference 4126 with rare alpha hands in rosé gold from 1947. All in all, we've hopefully learned that Vacheron developed an impressive design concept in the late 1930s, integrated into various complication watches in the early 1940s, and finally came out on top in the late 1940s with an impressive center-only seconds version. The very successful story seems to have come to an end in the early to mid 1950s when Vacheron Constantin began to look for new trends and strap lug designs. Importantly, the Vacheron Constantin teardrop lug does not exist. It is a frame around which you can build a beautiful story. And if you ask us, Vacheron has lived up to its potential. The timepieces look playful, almost comical at times due to the nature of the rabbit ears. But in other versions, you find yourself embraced by a strong masculine watch. And isn't this versatility something collectors strive for? So that's all for today. We hope you enjoyed this video and don't forget to comment your questions down below. Have a great day and hope to see you in our next Q&A video.